Okay, so I thought I'd do a sort of introductory video before we get to work with fake interiors. So let's talk about when we should use them and when we shouldn't. And so the first and foremost thing we should consider is natural window lighting. This is the most important thing in any scene. When you work with a 3D scene, you need to set up lighting first, and you need to make sure that you get some natural lighting from the window, from the sky, and the sun. And in case you have something that doesn't work at all, if you have some problems that make your scene look bad, you can use fakes. So I mean, extra lighting, collage, override, and stuff like that. So unless you really need to, you shouldn't use fakes. So there are some online schools that base their lighting setup courses solely on fakes. And, well, what can you say? That's not cool at all. So if you need to change something in your scene, or make some kind of edits, or go back to a previous version of the scene, it's going to be very difficult. So I recommend that you only use fakes when you want to get something specific, like very specific. So let's talk about when it is right and even useful to use fakes. So first of all, you can do it when the room next to your scene is dark and you need to illuminate it. So that is, you can add additional lighting coming from that dark area. And secondly, you can use fakes when you need to emphasize the shape of an object, like when an object is flat or exposed on all sides equally and its shape is just not visible. In this case, you can put a fake lighting. Create the shading you want to emphasize the shape of an object. So in that case, object looks good only if you tweak them with fake lighting. So third, you can use fakes when you need to sharpen the lighting. For example, when there are shadows in your scene, but they are rather blurred. In that case, you can add a fake lighting source that will make new shadows. But you should only do this when you just can't do it the normal way. Like when there's not enough lighting from the window. Then you add an additional lighting source that will make some lighting on the floor or on the ceiling or on other objects. So you can also amplify the light from the window. Although in most cases, using classic lighting setup with no fakes is enough. So in these tutorials, I will show you how to use a fake lighting to set up a pretty good scene very quickly. You can also use fakes when your image lacks contrast. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. Anyway, I wish you good luck in mastering the fake interior. But remember that you should use it only in special cases. So how do you improve the image if there's not enough lighting in the scene? Sometimes you may find that some places may be overexposed and other places may be heavily shadowed. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to enhance an image by adding localized lighting. So we talk about fake lighting here. In this case, we have some very dark spots. This plant right here literally looks black. I mean, if you make this image more contrasting, it's going to be visible. So next we have those table legs. And I know that this material is supposed to be dark, black even. But in this image, it looks very contrasting, like a black spot. So that needs to be fixed as well. Also, there's not enough lighting and volume in this area as well. So that is, all the chairs are almost devoid of shadows and any lighting. So everything looks rather flat, despite the window light. And so this happens because there is a big clutter of objects in this scene, and there is not enough lighting for all of this. So let's fix that. I switch back to gray material mode. I check the MTL override box so that'll make the work go a little bit faster. There we go. And so now we need to set up some fake lighting to fix our little problems. So the first thing I would do is tackle this plant right here. Although I think switching it to gray material mode was unnecessary because we don't really see the real deal that way. So I'm just gonna turn it off. And now we have almost no margin for error. Now it's time to improve this image. And I've got some overexposure on the windows, so the first thing I'll try to do is fix that with curves using frame buffer. Let's lighten up the shadow areas a little bit with the curves. But as you can see, now we're getting this kind of ugly white spot. So you can fix that a little bit later. And the highlights, well, I think we can turn them down a little bit. That's it. That should be enough. So the next thing we need to do is to set up the fake lighting. But before we do that, a few words about fakes. Now, we should use fakes when we've already exhausted all other methods and we can't set up lighting using more fair means, you could say. So some people see no limits when using fakes and use them even when it's inappropriate. So first, we need to set our main window lighting, which will be the main lighting layout. And only when we get a decent image, we can fix some minor details or emphasize something using fake lighting. So let's get started. First, we're gonna highlight the plants. We'll go to top view and create a basic Corona light. Let's put it like this. Here it's Corona, then we select Corona light and then rectangle. You can either use rectangle or disc form, whichever you like most. And I'm gonna put it right here. And then I'm gonna check target box and point it at the plant. Let's see what it looks like in the front view now. As you can see, it's gone underground. Let's put it like this. Now I think we're gonna need to light it from the front, from this side. So by default, this light source is very bright. Its value is about 50, I think. So I'm gonna set intensity value to 1 for now. Although it's blocking the whole view here. So we need to turn off all the options here. And I'm gonna uncheck visible directly. As for other options, well, I'll turn off everything except reflection. So why am I keeping reflection? Well, that's because the plant has highlights and reflections on its leaves. So it should be a good idea to add additional glare. If these reflections are too annoying, if they spoil the picture, I can turn them off with a click of a button. So we've highlighted this area, but now we've got the door and the floor highlighted as well. And there's some line over here. So we can work separately with the object we need. So I'm going to highlight the plant and copy its name. Basically, we don't even need to copy it. We can just do this. We can highlight the light source and add the object to excluded. And the object excluded parameter, we click this plus button and add it to the list. So now it's excluded from the render. That is, it remains dark in this location, but everything else is illuminated. And now we need to invert this. We click the object exclude button and then click include. So we're now illuminating only this object. And now we can set intensity value to 0.5. So we need to set the light source brightness so that we get a decent result. Also, if our lighting is sharp enough, we can increase the size of this light source. So basically we can do whatever we want to do to get a decent result. So basically what you don't want to do is you don't want to get too much exposure, because then the picture will be too flat, it's going to be too bright and unnatural. But I think it looks fine now. So let's try setting intensity value to 1. Here we go. Let's check the box here and compare it. As you can see, it's all dark again. And if we check the light on, check box again, and the plant has good lighting and it looks normal. So at this point we were forced to use fake lighting. All right, and so now let's work with the table leg. And again, I'm just gonna copy this light source. I'm pressing Shift, dragging it over here, and then I select copy. I'm gonna point target at the table leg, but there's a little thing here. The table is made of reflective material, some kind of metal or something. So we can adjust the glare a little bit more. As you can remember, the visible and reflections parameter should be checked. But since the object is excluded here, I need to do the following. So I remove the plant, and then what I do is I add the table leg, and then click OK, and the plus button. See? Now it's much better. And now I can do this. I just move the light source. I can put it closer so that I get a nice gradient glare, a reflection. I can also put it a little bit to the left so that the glare is on this side. Like that. The only thing is it looks a little bit too bright. We can reduce intensity value to 0.3. And that should do it. Looks much better now. Okay, and so now the last thing is highlighting this area. Although I don't think that's the last thing we should fix, because we still have a dark corner right here. So let's create some more fake lighting. Again, I'm gonna select rectangle and Corona light, and then target. This is where I'm gonna turn all the lights off for now, because I need to see how this fake lighting looks through window opening. So I'm turning off sun for now. Switching to 3ds Max settings mode, environment tab. And I think we should switch to override for now. Everything is now in black and white. You see now how heavily highlighted the plan is. The effect of the fake lighting is quite noticeable. So now I'm exposing it so that it's illuminating this area right here, and also the floor as well. The only thing is I need this lighting to be smoother, and to do that I just need to increase its size, and I'm gonna set it to 200 by 200, for example. In that case, intensity value would have to be turned down to 0.2. So we're getting some glare and some light, and now we can go back to the color image. And so now you might think that there's not enough lighting here, but there's actually glare and light shading on the legs, so that makes it look okay. I think that's enough. But if you think that's not enough, you can adjust this a little bit. I mean, we made this area more sort of protruding, more exciting. And so the last thing is this corner. Came out so dark that it looks dirty. So we need to light it up as well. I'm going to select Corona light again, and then I'm going to select the disc shape. Let's put it here. I'm pointing the target at the corner. So we need to light this point from the bottom to the top. It's a little bit brighter here, but we still have other objects that are illuminated. This is even more noticeable if you increase intensity. So this is why here we need to include the ceiling. And I'm going to leave the walls as they are. They're pretty dark. Let's just select ceiling and the moldings. And we add them to the included list. Don't forget to check include box. And now only these objects are illuminated. Everything looks much better. The key here is not to overdo it. So let's set the intensity value to 0.3, for example, so that we don't have such a noticeable transition and overexposure. So now we have some nice looking lighting. There's some smooth shadowing left, but I think that looks okay. But if you don't have enough light in some corners or not enough volume or shadows, you can add an extra light source. Adjust its size to get sharp and smooth shadows and the brightness, and you can do it separately for all the objects that you want to be illuminated. So let's say you have set up lighting in V-Ray and you're happy with it. But then it happens so that you see there are some areas that lack lighting. Some materials are very dark or not lit enough because of the size and depth of the room, but you still want to light them up. And so in that case, we can use fake lighting. But first of all, I want to say that you will first need to put the window lighting, that is the main kind of light, with the window being the primary source of light. And so only if that's not enough, you should use fake light. You should not make the fake lighting the main one, even if the window light is not enough. So I hope this is clear, because this is very important. And so let's see in practice how we can use fake light to improve the scene. So here we have a plant, and it's quite dark. It's got dark leaves, and it looks like it could use some additional lighting. So we need to make it a little bit brighter. And of course you can do this in Photoshop, but it's better to use 3D Max to make lighting work as it should. So moreover, you see the furniture looks insufficiently expressive. It seems to lack volume because the light coming from the window is put in that direction. Although in this scene, the doors are open, there's not much light in the next room. And I would like to emphasize the volume so that these chairs in this area as a whole would not be shaded so much and would not seem so flat. There's a problem here too. You see, this part of the table is very dark. There are no lights on it, and it looks like a black spot. So also there's a problem here, like this dark corner. The light just doesn't get in there. So we'll need to fix all that. And we'll start our work with the fake. Let's start with this plant, and I'm gonna do everything exactly the same way I did in Corona. In fact, it's very similar. So first we'll create V-Ray light source. We'll choose the plane type and place it somewhere in the room. And now we'll switch to top view and place it so that it's pointing at the plant. We can use target to make it easier to point it at the plant. Here we go. Now let's see what it looks like from the front view. As you can see, now we have light source here, but it's blocking the view. So we need to adjust it a little bit. Let's check the box for invisible. But then we're getting some backlighting. In the past videos, I've talked about how photographers hide this in their work. They highlight different areas and then switch together multiple images in Photoshop. So we can do this right away in 3D Max. And it's going to be much neater, much easier, and faster. So you see, now we have extra lighting. We have the door and the wall and the curtains, all of this illuminated. And this doesn't look at all the way we wanted it to look. So we need to exclude everything except the plant. Let's use the exclude settings. We need to find out the name of this group of objects. I'm just going to copy this. And next we go into the light source setting, click exclude, find this group by name in the list of objects, and then add it to the exclusion list and check include box. So now only the plant will be illuminated. We can also select the area we need, and now we'll work with intensity. So basically, the value we have now will be enough. But let me set it to 3, just for fun. And you can see that the area is now overexposed, so let's change the value to 1 or 0.5. This will be enough to lighten the leaves so that they don't look too dark. Moreover, we also have Affect Specular option. If we just want to add some highlights, we can disable Diffuse option and keep Specular, and then we'll have highlights on the material without any extra lighting. Again, this is fake method, but we can take advantage of it. We can also adjust directionality parameter and change the brightness and color if we need to. So let's say we set directional value to 0.3, and then the light will be brighter and harsher. In this case, we don't need that. So we're done with the plant. Now let's work on the lighting in this area. And I'm going to do the same here. I'm just going to copy the light source, and I'm going to hold Shift and drag it over here. Select copy. Since I'm going to change its settings, set target on the table leg. I think I'm going to rotate this light source by 90 degrees. So it's at the bottom. And I'm going to point the target parallel to the floor. Here we go. And now we just need to do a little bit of work with this area over here. In this case, we have some exclusions. I need to eliminate the plant. And first we need to know that we need to know what this object is named. So I'm just gonna call it randomly, just so I can easily find it in the list. And I'm just gonna select the light source, include it, find the object I want to select, check include, and click OK. And as you can see, that the area is now illuminated. But in order to make this effect more exciting, we can do a little bit of work with this light source. We can resize it. We can make it narrower, for example, like this. See, I can make it narrower and move it closer so that the gradient of the reflections and the highlighting is more noticeable. I can also make the gradient from this corner downwards more visible. And this way, this object will look more voluminous. There we go. Next, we'll need to work with the next room's lighting. In this case, I'm going to turn off the main light source for now. I'm just going to turn off the sun. It will be better if we control lighting of this area with an independent light source. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create the V-Ray light again. And it's going to be rectangular this time. Next, I'm just going to select the plane type. And you may or may not use target. So whatever you feel more comfortable with. I'm just going to set it in the doorway. And you can see that when the light, when it lights up from here, from the door, there is some lighting and shadows on the chair legs. See? We can also work with directionality. We can make its value higher. Just for the sake of experiment, we could put it to 0.5. And as you can see, the light is harsher now and brighter. But keep in mind that this light should not overlap with the light from the window. So it should be less bright than the light that comes from the window. Otherwise, all of this will look disharmonious. And this light will interrupt the main light and our scene will look flat. So I'll just set it to 0.3. And now we have highlights, we have some shadows, and basically that's enough. Now we just turn on the main light, and now we can harmonize them with each other. All in all, everything looks fine. We've got lighting right here, and it's not interrupting the light from the window. Let's turn on the sun now. And so the last thing we have left here is to fix this dark corner. We're just going to do the same thing here. We'll create a V-Ray light, and it's going to be in the shape of a disc. Why? Well, I just feel like it. I feel like that's going to be the best way to work with this fake. And now let's just put it in a way that it points into the corner. In this case, it's easier to use target and point it into the corner of the room. See, there it is. It looks like a scoop. And now we just need to adjust it a little bit. So first of all, we're just gonna check the invisible box. And now it's gone. To remove these sharp borders, we need to reduce a multiplier value. I'll set it to 0.5. And now we need to select the molding and the ceiling and check include. And so finally, I'm just going to give it a name. All right, and so finally we can move on to the molding. Let's not make it that much orange in this spot. I'm going to type it, and I'm going to type in a name. And then I'm going to click include again and search for it and add it to the list. And so now we have the right lighting. The only thing we need to do is to make sure that we don't have that harsh color transition and the spots. In this case, it's fine. We can reduce brightness a little bit so that there's not a lot of overexposure here. So the multiplier value is 0.2, for example, and that's pretty much it. So if we don't have enough light in certain areas, we can always illuminate some separate parts using fake lighting. The main thing is that you have to understand what you do and why you're doing it. So you don't want to make fake lighting your main source of light. But if you're too lazy, you can use it as your main layout. But we'll talk about that in the next video. See you then.